Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video review series where we take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website Roll20.net. With this video, I'll be reviewing the adventure anthology Keys from the Golden Vault, designed by Wizards of the Coast for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy these videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Keys from the Golden Vault is an adventure anthology similar to Journeys from the Radiant Citadel and Candlekeep Mysteries, and that it is not technically a full campaign book of all one big story. Instead, it's a collection of mini adventures ranging, in this case, from level 1 through 11 that you can drop into whichever campaign, or you could technically try to link them together, and there's a brief little paragraph about how to do that, which is a little disappointing because if you dig into some of the adventures, it's right there in terms of how to link them together. I really do love these adventures. In fact, it's been a while since I looked at Candlekeep Mysteries, but I think this might be my favorite anthology book. I certainly like it better than Journeys from Radiant Citadel, mainly because I think it's a lot easier to drop these into anybody's campaign, whereas the Radiant Citadel always had very specific universes you were going to. And it looks way better in Roll20 because we actually get full color, detailed battle maps. And this is a collection of heist adventures. And a heist is basically a dungeon crawl, right? It all takes place in one location that you're going to spend the entire adventure in. And because we get really awesome maps with that location, it translates very well to Roll20. So I am very, very positive on Keys from the Golden Vault. Also, I think it has a really good ratio of just solid adventures. Out of all 13 adventures, I think only 2 of them was I really not a fan of. The others I could see myself running and really enjoying them. I have my group really enjoy them. Do look for a ranking video, which I plan on putting together after this one. I have taken a deep dive into these adventures. I don't plan on taking that deep dive with this video. Instead, I'm going to give an overall my thoughts and kind of give you examples of maps and how things look in Roll20. But do look for that separate ranking video, which I do with all my adventure anthologies. So what all do you get with the Roll20 Keys from the Golden Vault version, priced at $29.99 on the marketplace? You get 13 individual heist adventures, which also are available as add-ons, which is very important because typically you're with these anthologies, you're going to just drop in whichever adventures you want into your existing campaign. And as I mentioned, there is no formal campaign linking these all together. So although you can create a module from this, which is what I have done for the purposes of review, you're more than likely just want to add them individually to your campaign already. But all the stats I'm about to give you are for everything altogether. I did not try to itemize each individual one because that's not how I set mine up. So 13 total battle maps, 1 for each adventure. 6 of them are unfortunately 10-foot square grids, which Roll20 has subdivided into 5-foot sections. And then 7 of them are the correctly sized 5-foot square grids. The 10-foot ones, some of them look really big and empty and unfortunate, and others, they actually look kind of fine even with the enlarged grid, and I'll show some of those how they look. But it's a bummer. I just wish we would formally declare, look, 5-foot square grids is what we need to have to make it work in 5e, but I get that some places, whether they're literally like giant size or something, you need to have very, very big spaces in these tiny maps. Over 70 magic items, over 100 monster sheets and tokens, over 20 named NPC sheets with tokens, and over 20 player art handouts, which is not including all of the monster sheets, which do all have handouts built in as well. You also get the Keys from the Golden Vault Compendium, which just means anything included in here is also included in the compendium. I don't think, there's no new classes or races, species, whatever, backgrounds. Nothing like that is really added here. In fact, I'm not even sure there are any new monsters, really. If you look through this list of monsters, you can see all the ones that are labeled MM1 are from the monster manual. So just scrolling through here, I don't think there's almost nothing. The only thing I can think of is there's some Clockwork Defenders, very few unique monsters. So honestly, almost nothing gets added really from the compendium. And in fact, the introductory rules that are basically any of the introductions that are not included in the adventures is also only a couple pages. So it's probably one of the least effective compendiums we've got for Roll20. You also get the Keys from the Golden Vault art pack, which just means any artwork, specifically, I don't have it pulled up here, but any of the art that is tied to like a certain NPC or from like art like this would be made into a token that you can then grab from the art library. So that is what you get. As I mentioned, the actual beginner rules, which Roll20 has started recently doing this, I believe as recently as the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen from late 2022. They include basically anything that's not adventure text just as links to the compendium section, which is not very much in this book. As I mentioned, it's almost all adventure. The very little bit we get are basically in here, like these rules, which I do run dark mode, but unfortunately if you're running stuff from the compendium, it still puts it as light mode, which I find annoying, but whatever. Little notes about how to basically run a heist, the act of the moving MacGuffin, complications. Honestly, I thought this area was a little bit underdeveloped and could have used some more information there, because I think running a heist is kind of a unique situation that maybe DMs, you could spend a few more pages on teaching people how to do that. In fact, I reviewed a product in the DMs Guild called Stolen Hearts, which probably does a better job of actually introducing people to heists and how to roll for like casing the joint skill challenges and all that. So I think I was a little disappointed in basically how this section runs. What I wasn't disappointed in is the actual Golden Vault itself. The Golden Vault, by the way, is not an adventure. The Golden Vault is the somewhat confusing name of the organization that your players can work for. It is your group patron, which was introduced. Technically, there's a mention of group patrons in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but it was really expanded on in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which is the idea that basically your entire party works for a certain person or a certain organization or entity that gives you your missions. It's just a really easy way of organizing a mission structure, especially if it's not really like a linear story campaign where each one leads to the next one. Instead, they're almost like, episodes of a serialized TV series where it kind of begins, middles, and ends within that individual episode, but you're always working for the same organization. And in the case of the Golden Vault, it basically allows you to do heist missions while still being good guys, because in fact, it even says the Golden Vault's motto reflects its primary motivation: do good no matter the cost. Missions from the Golden Vault are often illegal, but they always support a just moral cause. Kind of similar to the Harper organization, where they're spies and they're kind of working against and infiltrating people and making sure bad guys don't have things. So you're kind of doing things that are not, above the law, and yet you're doing it ultimately you're trying to keep like bad things out of the hands of bad people. Like, you're not working for nasty people. Although in some of these cases, it gets a little bit gray area with that. So I thought that was a thumbs up. I enjoyed the Golden Vault. I think the Golden Vault is fine, and actually more than fine. They do a really fun thing here where they have a section under every single adventure where you can is if you were running it from the Golden Vault, and it has a very cute, like, here's your mission should you choose to accept it, which is, as members of the Golden Vault, you receive this music box, and then whenever you get a mission, a courier gives you a key, and the key is stylized in whatever's going on. So in this case, you've got like a figure with wings on this one. There's a picture of a man. Let's see, the Clockwork one is a gear. So they're all, cool looking. And then you put it in the music box, you open it, and then it plays basically the message of should you choose to accept it. And it gives you the entire rundown of the quest operation. The one thing I love about the way heists work in D&D, and at least in this book, is that it kind of trims a lot of the fat away from a mission. Especially works well if you're running as a one-shot, because often maybe that can kind of slow things down where your players are slowly getting to the part that's exciting, which is the actual dungeon crawl, the actual heist. And in this case, for most of them, not all of them, but for most of them, you really jump into the action pretty quickly. There are opportunities to case the joint and to scope out the area ahead of time, but some cases you just basically get the quest and then you arrive, and then they even give you a map, which I'll show you the awesome player maps you get. They'll give you the information, and then you can go immediately to that location and engage with essentially what would be the second half of a heist film, where you're actually there doing the thing. So it's smartly kind of montages or skips through a lot of that early moments. I mean, you've already gathered your members together, which is already kind of, usually a classic big part of the first half of the heist storyline, right? We've already got our team together. So now we just need the mission, and then we can go do the thing. So I do like the way that is particularly organized. And I think that's about it. Yeah, I mentioned the moving MacGuffin, the rival crew. This should have been such a cool idea, and it is so disappointing with the way it's executed here. And I'm going to give you an example of what's a better example of a well done rival crew. So it says, hey, one of the things you can do to make these heists more interesting is develop a rival group of NPCs that are kind of doing these missions. And it even gives you some examples of like why they would be doing these things. And like what motivations that crew would have. And you can kind of, a good DM can be thinking about, okay, here's how I can couch this as maybe a full campaign with the rival crew. There's even a rival organization, which is not mentioned in the campaign section, which is really annoying, but instead is mentioned as almost an aside deep in one of the adventures. It's like, hey, at one point this character reveals itself and tries to kill the party, and they're the member of STEAL, which is this hilarious acronym for, larceny and extortion, all this stuff. And they're working against the group. Like, well, wait, why wasn't this in the section at the beginning of the book where it was mentioning the fact that you could, have this rival crew and this rival organization and tie things together with a campaign? And with the rival crew, it's incredibly disappointing, even though it gives you a brief example, a brief description of these characters you could have. They don't give them bespoke, stat blocks that are built like player characters. Instead, they're very, very simplistic, dumbed down, stat blocks we've seen 100 times before, the bandits, the thugs, the spies, the veterans, that they slightly level up each time, which, I mean, bandit is one of like the lowest stat blocks you could even come up with for this. So this rival crew is not meant to be, very difficult at all. And they don't even get like tokens on the map or anything. So Roll20 does provide a token page where you can see all the tokens visually and look at these. These are the rival crew. It's just the names printed on the token. We're going to get faces for them. So you want an example of how to do a rival crew correctly? I'm going to flip over to Critical Role Call of the Netherdeep, which I reviewed some time ago. And one of the things I said was really good about this campaign is they did a cool job with the rival crew and actually put together a very important NPC adventuring party that all have like super big backstories, and they level up with the party and they're basically built like player characters, but NPCs. They've all got unique stat blocks. Like, this is the way you put a rival crew together. This is not the way you do it. So huge thumbs down on this rival crew. I mean, I guess it's nice that they attempted to do it, but like, no, it doesn't try to do it at all. By the way, Roll20 also has some really nice tips section here where it basically teaches you how to use everything that's included in the module. Here's how to open your character sheets and just kind of how to work on macros and work initiative and how dynamic lighting works. These are awesome, and I think these have gotten better every time. They started doing these a couple years ago, and from then on, it's just gotten more and more impressive. There we go. There's an example of how dynamic lighting works, both inside and out. You can see the two-way dynamic lighting. Like, that's awesome. These are great. I really like the way they work. Example of how windows and doors can work, which this one, by the way, does take full use of all the new doors and windows feature, and you can imagine this is the perfect campaign to have that, because there is a shit ton of doors and windows in all of these heist adventures. So really, really cool addition here. It feels weird to add this as a pro because it's become a standard thing for Roll20, but I definitely want to point it out because I do love having that. All right, so as I mentioned in this review, I'm not going to go over every single individual adventure. Instead, I'm going to give you some examples so I can show you kind of what the maps look like and maybe what to expect from each individual adventure. By the way, at the start of this, we're already 10 minutes in, I believe they released Prisoner 13 as a free heist that you could kind of get an example of and check out as one of the adventures from here. I'm here to tell you that I think that is one of the worst heist adventures in this book. So A, if you were turned off by that adventure, then hold on because they get much better. And B, if you enjoyed that adventure, then hold on because they get even better than that. So I'm here to tell you, Prisoner 13, I thought was utter crap for multiple reasons. Thankfully, that is like at the bottom of my list, and the rest of them are significantly better than that. The level 1 adventure is fan-freaking-tastic. This is the Merkmeyer Malevolence, and you are hired to steal a eldritch egg, which has some kind of creepy monster inside, although nobody else seems to know about that except for a person who's been basically discredited and hires you to help steal the egg from the Natural Museum, which has it on display. This just feels like the plot of a movie or a TV. Like, it's so well done and feels so like grounded in realism, and yet still takes place in a fantastical universe in a really smart way. The fact that the thing you're trying to steal is this like eldritch egg that's fixing to hatch, but it's within this Museum of Natural History. You can go there during the day, you can go there at night. It's got all these information about the patrol levels and alarms and guards. There's an animatronic Allosaurus that a wizard could magically hotwire in order to transform and rampage, as possibly a nod to Night at the Museum. I just think it's a really incredibly well done adventure, especially because it's level 1 and the players often don't have that many tools, and yet it doesn't necessarily keep things, simple or dumbed down for them. This might, in fact, because of that, be easily one of my favorite level 1 adventures. And also, look at the amazing map. Oh, this isn't one. What's the player map for this one? Maybe it doesn't show one on here. They usually have a player map. This one might not have one. You also get the opening gala where you can. This one has a fact where you can case the joint and basically attend this gala and scope around and check out the guards. And there are different ways you can wait in the bathrooms, for the place to close and then steal it. Like, it has all these really cool options. All the guards are given different names and things, and because I think a lot of the trick of the heist is the DM needs as much information as possible because the players are going to naturally try to ask and do things that are way beyond the scope of a normal dungeon. I think the reason why a heist can work very well in D&D is because it encourages players to do that. It encourages players to think outside the box. Although, I think that there are two different major kinds of heists that are on display here. Because you might say, well, Eric, I don't want to run a heist because my players like the traditional dungeon crawl. My barbarian's not going to do anything. They just want to fight things. And to that, I will say, hold on, there are two major kinds of heists here in this adventure. This is an example of the first kind of heist, which is probably the kind of heist you are thinking of, which is, the heist from Ocean's 11 or, Heat or The Town or something, where those all devolve into combat eventually. But, I guess Ocean's 11 technically doesn't. They kind of keep the heist thing going the whole way. But essentially, you're trying to rob a place that is non-hostile to everybody else, right? It's just a normal location. In this case, it's a museum. You're not supposed to go in there and kill everybody. There's normal guards doing their job. There's no, evil here. You're just trying to get this out of the hands of, I guess, one of the proprietors is kind of selfish and trying to keep the egg for themselves. But other than that, you're not meant to do this room-to-room fighting. So it does, feel more like a traditional heist in that way. Where, you're not supposed to be, tripping alarms and battling guards all the time, or hopefully you're knocking them unconscious. But then the other half, and it's about half and half, the other half are basically more straight up dungeon crawls. They involve much closer to battling in unique areas that are all dangerous, that are essentially just room-to-room fights, but you're still sent there to retrieve an object, because that's really all the heist is. It just means you're going to a location, you already know what your objective is. Your objective isn't to clear out a den of monsters or to, stop some big bad villain, although in some cases they do have big bad villains. Instead, you're just meant to go there and steal a thing, and you're given probably more information than you normally would for a dungeon crawl, so the players get an opportunity to plan. All of that is the check marks for running the heist adventure. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to just enter into these non-hostile areas. Sometimes you are. Sometimes you're in a casino in the cavern. Sometimes you're in a conservatory. Sometimes you're at a prison. And in this case, you're at a museum. Those are all like the non-hostile ones. On the other end of the spectrum, though, you are in a castle being destroyed by a black void and a big bad villain mage at the center of it. Or you're at an evil mansion of somebody who's been possessed and it's all body horror, crazy Far Realm shit going on. Or you are just in a thieves guild with a bunch of, I guess that one's kind of you could see it either way, but still, that you're in a thieves guild, so you can kind of beat up everybody, and then you're stealing something from them. And then a couple of them kind of blur the two together. So I kind of divided them. I said 5 of them were traditional heists, 6 of them are hostile dungeon crawls that are still themed as heists, and then 2 of them could kind of go either way, where you could see the players treating it more like a room-to-room dungeon crawl, or they could treat it more like a non-hostile social thing, depending on how they kind of treat that location area. In other words, I'm telling you, there's a really good variety of all of those things. They're not all just Mission Impossible style, okay, we need to scope everything out and drop in there and try not to fight everything. That's not what all you're going to get here. Instead, I think you're going to get a pretty rich variety. So this is a really fantastic museum adventure. That's a good example of the former, which is a non-hostile area you don't really want to fight in. And then, by the way, notice the art here. There are 2 very different art styles used here. This is full color battle map art, which I love. It looks like a sketch map art, which is an interesting way to go about it. Does one really not have a map that they show the players? I'm trying to think. They all usually give you a map. There we go. Sketch the museum. Okay, here it is. This is what I was trying to show you earlier. So this is partly what makes the heist adventures so cool and something I really, really love, and I'll show you on a couple of these. But the players, before they even get to the area, the quest giver, or maybe an NPC soon after the quest giver, gives you a map which has a lot of fun information on it. It looks like somebody, drew the map. It's even got like question marks on it, which I love. And this is so fun, I think, for a DM to be able to give your players this mission, hand them this map, or share it to them, as it were, in Roll20, and then just sit back and listen to your players plan things out while perusing this map. That is such a cool freaking idea. And every single one of these adventures gets a map. They don't all have this exact style. Some of them look a lot differently than others. Some of them have big like cracks through them or something. Others have maybe even wrong information or dated information, which is cool. Like that one that has the destroyed castle that's like got chunks of it floating in the air. That's not in the map that it shows. So the players might have to come up with that. And obviously it won't necessarily say all the traps on there, although it may say some of them. I think this is an absolutely fantastic element, and probably one of my favorite parts of this adventure that makes me excited to run these adventures is having those kind of handouts that you get. And yes, those are included as separate player handouts that you can give the players before they even embark on it. So this is an example of one of the map arts map styles, and then another one. I'm gonna show the, let's see, Little Lockford. Is that the same styles or a different one? Okay, this is the same map style, but this is an entirely different genre of heist, and it's honestly a really fantastic one. This one, which by the way, so Merkmire Malevolence was level 1. This one, Clocksworth, is the level 5 adventure, and this one is completely different. This one is a deep gnome town has been taken over by clockworks, and a clockwork gnome who has basically gone completely Darth Vader and like replaced part of their body with cybernetics and looks completely awesome and is kind of a villain, or is the villain here. But your goal, and they've been kicked out of the town like most of the living people. You're basically hired by the town to get back in there, steal a key, and then activate the failsafe that shuts down all the clockworks. So essentially, this is a really fancy, cool dungeon crawl with half of the Roll20 map is kind of an overland map of the Deep Gnome town itself, with all these like drawbridges that can be operated. Like it's super like clockwork cool, like steampunk shit going on. And there's of course like NPCs you can talk to and prisoners you can free, and all. There's a drilling machine you can pilot. There's all kinds of Underdark type creatures you can interact with. Just absolutely freaking awesome. And then each building, because part of the problem when you have these maps, you're often like, well, what do I use to actually, I can't use this map to fight on. Well, look, when you scroll down, each of these buildings has an interior. That's awesome. I love it. And that's how it is in the book. And it's translated perfectly to Roll20. And I love the way that respects the players and the DM's ability to battle on all of these maps should they so choose. So this one operates really, really well. But as I mentioned, yes, it's a heist, and yet, all of your more people that are into fighting rather than doing all the sleuthing and socializing, there's still going to be some time for that, but you're going to have a lot more battles here than you necessarily would with like the guard one. So part of this adventure is just knowing which adventure is which, and look for my ranking video to like do a deep dive into these adventures, and knowing which your group would prefer. Or if they want a mixture of it, then you can just run like the whole thing together. But it really is almost half and half with the what I would consider traditional heists, and then more hostile. I think of like Rogue One almost is like a heist movie, right? Where they need to go into the base and retrieve the plans, and they're in the middle of a fucking war. Like I don't know if that translates exactly to any of these heist ones where you're in the middle of like a huge battlefield like that, but the point is that whole place is hostile to them versus some neutral site where they don't want to get in trouble. So that's what a lot of these are for, and Clocksworth is definitely one of my favorites because of just how cool and well designed it is. And it's still that one kind of art. So look at the way this art looks, kind of as very much like a hand-drawn sketch, and then look at one that is different. I know Veteran's Vault is one. I can't remember off the top of my head which ones are which art, but then Veteran's Vault looks very much like a Mike Schley. I think Jared Blanda was the other one. And I like that art that we just saw. I like it, and I like Mike Schley's art. It's just weird seeing them together as essentially just divided duties between them. So you'll get both kinds of map styles. I probably overall prefer Schley's art because that's just the one I've used the most and taken advantage of in a lot of my games. But I think both of them are fine, and this one, is an example of another hostile dungeon crawl that feels. This one's kind of middle of the road. It's kind of simplistic, but it just operates really well. And again, you'll get some really, really fun maps with all of these. Let's see, where's the example for Veterans Vault? And I may have to check out. Unfortunately, they're kind of linked together. Basic layout. Okay, here we go. So here's an example. You can see the funny like stick figures there and big question marks where they don't know, where everything is. That's fantastic. I just these handout maps are so much fun. They work so well. The one for the casino I know was particularly joyful for me, and yes, you do get a casino one, which is this one, the Afterlife Casino, which is the Stygian Gambit. Is that under planning the heist? Of course, they can play games here. It's a casino built into a giant cavern. There is the link to the map. Thank you. Right there. There we go. This one is one of my favorite ones. I think this just looks fabulous. It's got little security alarms on there. It needs pass card. Everything's all written down. And then there's a little note where like all the different areas are named after the layers of hell. And the devil feels very much like the Andy Garcia, like super, like just over the top, melodramatic, kind of mustache twirling villain. Absolutely great. And there's great complications throughout a lot of these adventures too. Like the players may need to realize there's one towards the end where they have to steal, like the Murkmire malevolence, right, where the egg could hatch at some moment. There's one towards the end where they're trying to steal a necklace off of an elven woman, and if they do steal it, it's built to where it teleports instantly to the vault. So that creates like a two-step process where not only have you stolen it successfully, but now it teleports somebody else and now to that location as a failsafe, and then you have to go and steal it from there. Other complications, again, could be the rival crew. It could be other things stepping in. Some of them, but not all of them, maybe have a little timing situation involved where things could happen. There probably could have been a bit more for complications for some of these. Many of them are pretty straightforward, and I think they're kept pretty simple to run on purpose, whereas others, I feel like they do enough cool, fun twists that make things very memorable. I mean, the fact that one of these is just on a train and then has just a murderer in the middle of the train. The train, by the way, is an extra-dimensional, extra-planar train run by Modrons, and you're trying to learn the true names of devils from a stranger who just knows all this information, which is all very freaking awesome. Here's the picture of the train. The train cars are done as individual areas here, the Concordant Express. Really, really fun. There's so many cool ideas and locations and memorable scenes. There's an Ifrit lair in a volcano. As I mentioned, there's the Thieves Guild that you have to try to steal a magic portrait from. There's a palace in the Feywild. There's this magic train, that casino, the Museum of Natural History. The Revel's End prison is the only one that I really, really don't like because I think Revel's End is an example of a really crappy map that does not look good on Roll20. There's one other one like that, but I'll save it for my other video. And they basically just reuse this map. It just looks really empty and really crappy on Roll20, and there's really nothing to do in this prison. And we just saw Revel's End in Rime of the Frost Maiden, where there was also basically nothing to do. So they're kind of 0 for 2 on using this location. The only cool thing is the actual prisoner has some badass magic tattoos. But then the one twist is that she doesn't want to get out of prison, and she doesn't really want to help you. So it doesn't really give the players a whole lot of options or opportunities for fun storytelling whatsoever. So this one is kind of a bummer. But again, if you were judging Keys from the Golden Vault based purely on this adventure, please do not do that, because there is so much good to be had from this entire campaign book, but it's an adventure anthology, really, and I really think it may be one of, I may have to rank it above. It's difficult. I know it's better than Journeys from Radiant Citadel for different reasons, and it's hard to compare it to Candlekeep Mysteries because Mysteries, I think, also did not have very good maps. However, Mysteries had more content. It had 17 adventures versus the 13 here, and it went up all the way till tier 3. A big bummer here is the actual level, the final, like 13th adventure is only level 11. So similar to the main 5e campaigns, we only go from 1 through 11, which really sucks because I was really excited to see how Wizards handles a heist type adventure in those upper levels, because already when you get to tier 2, the players have access to all these powerful spells that essentially can just break or bypass a lot of security measures. And what do, actual proper fortresses look like in this universe where a lot of, maybe not, every character's a mage, but that it does exist. I want to see more anti-magic fields and more really strong like security measures, and see how the players, butt up against that, and what kind of storylines that could be created from that. And instead, we don't really get any of that. Although the top, I guess the 11th one does kind of tease some, upper battles and some interesting things, but I was really disappointed that it basically is almost all tier 1 and tier 2, nothing beyond level 11, which, ugh. All right, let's go over my pros and cons. I'm going to get off this map because I don't like it. We're going to go back to What do you want to see? The museum was good. We'll look at the casino because I think that's such a classic one. Pro, Keys in the Golden Vault has an excellent variety of heist subgenres, locations, and themes. I just kind of rattled them off earlier, but it's not all just casinos. It's not all just a person's house. In fact, I think only one of them is considered a person's house, which is Reach for the Stars, and that one is the big body horror, like straight up horror one, where it's nasty things are happening, and this dude has been like possessed by this far realm entity, and everybody's got there's a cult in here. Like it's just all kinds of dangerous, nasty stuff going on, and that's basically the only one that's a house. Otherwise, it's a casino, it's a museum, it's a prison, it's that deep gnome town, it's a mages guild area, it's a thieves vault. Shard of the Accursed I didn't even go over. It's the Heart of the Ashes are all real cool. You know what? I'm not gonna go over them because they're gonna save them for the other video. But there's an awesome variety of locations and things that you're doing in there. And I think there's something for everyone, which is another official pro, is that there's traditional heists and then there's heist-themed dungeon crawls. And there's about half and half. Some of them are like the casinos, are a prison, are what's an example of a palace in the Feywild, to where you're not meant to fight everything. That doesn't mean there are opportunities to battle. There are guards and sentries and things where you can have your little fights, but you're not meant to turn it into a big room-to-room dungeon crawl or hostile environment, whereas other ones, like the Ifrit's Volcano Fortress, is just full of monsters, and if you want to just treat it like a dungeon crawl, you absolutely can. The adventure just lets you do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that, in fact. It's just that you're there to grab a certain object, in that one case, the Book of Vile Darkness, which you're literally trying to steal from an Ifrit. And that's totally fine. The adventure just lets you do that, and I think that's a smart way of doing it, because if anything, a heist is basically just a dungeon crawl with a certain objective, and I think the D&D crew knew that, and they went after it with probably trying to divide it up into those different styles of play, and that way everybody, I think, is happy. And for my group, I think you would just run a combination of them. If you were going to run a couple of these, I think having some of them be more one way or the other, and of course a team, players are going to treat it however they want to try to treat it, but at least from the outset, they get an idea of whether they can go in, supposed to go in more guns a-blazing or try to be more maybe smart about it. Pro, the Golden Vault group patron works well as a good aligned heist organization. Unlike Radiant Citadel, where I didn't think the hub was anything special or notable or interesting, this one doesn't have a hub, but at least it's linked together by that organization of the Golden Vault. I love the use of the keys, the music box, all that is very cute and clever. I love the way that it, gives you a little, basically just literally, this is your mission should you choose to accept it. This quest should you choose to undertake it. In this case, all of that is very cute and keeps up with the heist theme. And I would probably, if I wasn't just dropping into this into an ongoing adventure, if I were running this as a one-shot or a series of one-shots or a campaign, I would 100% use the Golden Vault. And I would expand that to probably use the Villainous organization as well, but we'll get into that. Pro, full-color battle maps to make use of all the new doors and windows features. Boy, if there's ever been a campaign that could show off the use of how the doors and windows work, like this is absolutely one of them. It does a fantastic job, and those doors and windows work beautifully well for being able to let your players open and close, lock things down, not having to mess around with the dynamic lighting as much as you, the DM. There's so many doors everywhere that it's really a huge thumbs up to be able to have that feature built in. And Pro, the incredibly fun player handout maps that you can give to your players as a way of giving them that like casing the joint feel, where it's like, we've got all this information, now we can jump in, we can get this started. It's fantastic, and I love the in-universe like sketching of all the people that do it, and some of them are more accurate than others. It's just awesome. It really helps keep that theme of the heist and executes it very, very well. And I think your players will really enjoy having that player handout and then getting put on the map and like, okay, and constantly like looking at it, referencing it. I'm getting excited about even thinking about that. I do have criticisms though. My first con is that basically it's the rival crew. They suck. There's no tokens for them. They lack unique stat blocks. They're just hugely disappointing, especially when compared to a campaign like Call of the Netherdeep, which does rival crews very well. This does not do it at all. So the DM would have to, I think it's a cool idea to do a rival crew, or at least a rival organization, which brings me to my other con, is that there are underdeveloped tools for linking the adventures together as a campaign. That's kind of true of most of these adventure anthologies. I find it's a little disappointing when it comes to how to turn it into a campaign if you wanted to, and yet the pieces are there. The Golden Vault is there that can link these together, and then there's this villainous organization which I'd have to dig through and find. I know it was in the train one, where there's a certain part where this villain reveals itself. It'll take me a hot second to find it. I don't know if it's worth looking up right now, but is it the Grace? Oh, actually, it is right here. The Slod works for an evil multiverse-spanning organization called the Syndicate of Terror, Extortion, Assassination, and Larceny, aka Steel, which has been spying on the characters for some time once their mission aboard the Concordant Express to fail. This is doubly true of the characters working for Steel's rival, the Golden Vault. If you are weaving multiple adventures from this anthology in your campaign, one or more villains from earlier adventures might have secret ties to this evil organization. I was reading this going, holy crap, why didn't you put this in the beginning of the book under how to link these other? This is brilliant. Yes, that's so fun and so cheesy, and cheesy is always works pretty well for D&D because people want to play with those tropes and play around with those classic storytelling beats and characters and themes. Like, yes, of course you would have a very goofy named like rival organization, and they would be there like, one step ahead of you, and you can thwart them back and forth. Like, that's the way you link this together as a fun heist themed campaign. And yet all this information is like buried under one train car under the train adventure, and I couldn't understand why they did that. So the pieces are there, the ideas of the rival story, and but it's just not very well organized. And I think a smart DM is going to be able to take those pieces and be able to create a better campaign together based on that. But as written, I got to include it as a big con. My other con is that the highest adventure is level 11, and that's something that is worse than the last two ones they did. Candlekeep Mysteries obviously did a great job. It was tier 1, 2, and 3, had 17 adventures, awesome. Journeys to Radiant Citadel only had 13 adventures, it's still a lot. But also went up to, I think, at least level 13, if I remember, like they were all each one level. But this one doubles up on some of them to where it only goes up to 11, and that's just, I feel like we're just keeps taking steps backwards. Like, come on, like, don't be afraid to give me that upper level content. Or make your games only level up to like 12. Like, stop fucking teasing this. This is annoying as hell for me that you let your players level up to 20, and yet there's just no official content or support for that. And I would really love to see how heist adventures work at those higher levels, especially. So I did find that particularly disappointing in this campaign that we only went up to level 11. All right, final verdict for keys from the Golden Vault. From a cavernous casino to a palace in the Feywild and an extra-planar train piloted by Modrons, Keys from the Golden Vault features a wealth of well-designed heist locations, memorable complications, and intriguing characters. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. If you can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. And you can support my work at patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Koa 1337, Matthew, Big Nut, John, Chris, Scott, Gene, Eric, and Gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Caroline, and William. Thank you very much for your support.